Bonjour, mes amis. Hola, amigos. And hello, friends. It's Will House Traditions here again. And today I want to feature the French knitter kits I have on Etsy are spool knitters. These are made in the traditional manner. You can find plastic versions of these today as well out on the market. But these I personally made myself with the old vintage wooden spools like people used back in the day. Now each of my spool knitters has two sides to them. In this video I'm going to feature the 3 and 6-sided one right here. But there are others. Now the more pins that you have on the side of the spool, the tighter your gauge. All right, so that's going to be a much closer knit stitch on your cording versus this one. It'll be looser. So I will make a video showing the outcomes of using each side of these French or spool knitters. Okay, in your kit, when they come in a lovely organza bag, you got the spool knitter. You have a handy dandy loom hook. Now on your loom hook, there's, I don't know if you can see it very well, a little bit. There's a little bit of a reflection. There's a cap on the tip or a cork. This is to keep the pointy end from causing problems in shipping, or just for you to keep for the purposes of safety. That way it's, you know, less of a problem when not in use. You will want to remove it when you go to use it. Okay, it's not super sharp, but it is pointy. It is pointy. So use caution with this. And if children are using it, make sure there's some adult supervision there. You don't want them running off with it. But all ages can use these tools for the most part. I find that 6-year-olds generally, if they have some pretty decent fine motor skills, are able to do the 3-sided one fairly well, but their attention spans vary quite greatly, and so they may not be able to stick with it for very long. It'll be quite an accomplishment to get a 6-year-old to make something that's bracelet sized for them, but that's huge. But it's about establishing and developing their fine motor skills and getting them to learn to love the fiber arts with counts. And of course, you know, the adult working with them can always finish it up when they get tired or lose their attention for the task. And it's just something fun to do together, especially getting the younger children to work with your older members of your family or community. It's a nice little bonding experience. A lot of our older members in our family and community remember doing these when they were a child. You know, mostly the women when they were young girls. And so this will give them a fond memory and a chance to do a fun activity with their grandchildren, sometimes great-grandchildren. And it helps them retain as well their fine motor skills. And then once you have a cord, it's fun to explore what creative ideas you may do with a cording. And children usually have far better imagination than adults, so you never know where that journey may take you. Also have a yarn needle or tapestry needle or darning needle. These are in plastic. My kits kind of have a color theme to them, but some of them are kind of mixed because just due to the inventory and supplies. There's going to be a small, really cute ball of yarn to get you started. The ends will be taped so that you could find them more easily, because I know that's a frustrating aspect for a lot of people, especially younger folks, when trying to start an activity, and they will get the yarn knot it up really fast. So just adding some painter's tape on the end. Tip parents or teachers who are working with young ones, this can be helpful. And there's two of these plastic needles. One is longer, probably be used a bit less, but depending on your application, if you're trying to weave in your tails and throw it, farther down into a tube, once you weave in ends or something, you may find this useful. This one will probably be far more frequently used. So these are all the items in your kit. To begin, you take your yarn and you create a slip knot. Now, this is the way that I learned different ways to how to make a slip knot when I was younger, and as I got older, this ended up becoming for my most preferred way, and I find this method easier for children to grasp, making a slip knot this way. Some can do it anyway, and that's fine. Choose what you prefer. There's no doing it wrong or doing it right here, as long as you make a slip knot. And so drape the yarn. I have the tail in the back of my hand, so I drape it over. So then now when you're looking and you close these fingers in, you have one loop on your index finger. Then you pull the tail over to make a second loop. Okay? Then you pull out your thumb and your middle finger. So you see it takes some skill, some fine motor coordination and skill. And you pinch this off. You can leave the tape on there. It may help a child because the yarn is kind of thin. So this may be an accommodation for someone who's losing their grip, or having a hard time with some fine motor skills. This can prove helpful. And then you can use your fingers or the loom hook. The choice is yours. Some people pull out a crochet hook. That's fine. And you do the back loop over the front loop. Okay? And you see the two loops there on the finger. They've just crossed each other's path. And then now the new back loop, you pull out and over the tip of your finger. And then you pull. Okay? Once you pull, it'll tighten up a little bit. Then you take your loop, you put it over one of your pins. Now again, this here is the 3-pin side to this knitting spool. And then I'm going to pull. Now some of you may end up making a slip knot that pulls on this side. If it doesn't get smaller, your loop doesn't get smaller, you pull on the other. It doesn't matter where it's pulling from. Either one works and it's fine. Now, when you tighten that up, you want to have some space there. You don't want to tighten it so much all the way that you don't have much space to work, okay? Ooh, and I ended up with not much of a tail. You see, that's the problem with trying to get too tight. So I'm gonna let it climb up a little bit. Then I would tug it. And a little bit of space there. Then I can use my tape also, because these holes are a little bit smaller, but they are the traditional and classic style. I can roll this up and send this down the chute. And I can use my loom hook to get it down in there more. And it starts to come out the other side. If you end up making a slip knot and you're not getting enough for you to pull, and you might want it a little bit longer than this, you want something that you can grab and pull on from the other side of the spool to begin. Okay, so we've got our first loop on our first pin. Now I come around the back of the next pin and I loop over. This is generally called an E-wrap, because if you kind of look at it, kind of looks like the shape of an E. This is common in all your knitting loom techniques, okay? Then I go to the behind the next pin, around the front, and then back around the back. Now you see each of my 3 pins has 1 loop. So now I need to go a second time before I can start knitting. Go around the next pin, around the back, then through the front, and then I move over to the next one from around the back, around the front. And then, oh, I need to do one more because this one only has 1 loop. Around the back, through the front. Now all of them has 2 loops on it. One challenge I see children have the most with the instruction, so you may want to watch them more closely. Usually when I'm working with children, I have like at least 5 around me, so I don't watch them as carefully. But if you're working one-on-one with a kid, you can catch this better. Sometimes they lose track of how many loops they have on each pin, and they end up doing multiple loops. You don't want multiple loops because that then makes your stitching, and as you're trying to do the knitting, really tight, and it doesn't work out so well. So you want to make sure that they remember to check. You want only 2 loops on each pin. Now, because of the round shape of the spool, it's easy to then just grab it and hold your working yarn out of your way, and now you take the loom hook. It does not matter which pin you approach first. Sometimes you might want to prefer to do where your working yarn is coming out of, because then that kind of locks your work in place and you don't have to worry about it as much. But then that can be tight and cause this loop to jump out and over. So you may not want to do that, especially if, you know, it's someone who's not as in tune with their fine motor skills. So this can also be used for someone in recovery from an accident. It's a nice hands-on craft for eye-hand coordination, getting all that in. So what I would do for most, not everyone, you can choose, no hard, fast rules, go on to this next pin from the working yarn. I pull the yarn gently, the loop from the bottom, and I bring it over the top, and I'll let it sit there. I turn, I go to the next one, I pull, and then it'll get looser as you go on. Of course, this one's only 3, so it's not a big deal. I'll pull from the bottom over the top. Then I do my last one, pull from the bottom over the top. Now when I'm finished, your first round, just like in regular knitting, it's going to be a little bit looser, you know, at that start. Basically, you have just cast it on, right, to start. And what this creates is a very tight and small tube. So, you know, if you make the hats on the knitting looms, it's basically a tube shape that you're working from. Well, this is the smallest tube next to the 2-prong lucet that you can make. Now I only have 1 loop on each pin, so I'm going to go, this is where I last looped. You can see how it's hooked in there. And now I go behind the next pin, around the front, then behind the next pin, around the front, behind that last pin, around the front, put it down, hold it, 2 loops, I pull from the bottom. Ooh, I pulled that too hard. Okay, you can always tug from the bottom to adjust things if your strength is greater than you realize, which I just did. So now you have only 1. Move to the next pin and make sure all my loops are staying in place. Pull from the bottom, not too hard because they'll slide over the top. Pull from the bottom, and you see you use the space on these pins here to help you over the top. Then you tug on the tail. Now the further you get along, your tugging from the tail will be far more efficient than your first round. And then you just keep going. Now as you do this more and more, you of course become faster at it, right? And you know, it's pretty amazing how quickly some people will get fairly early with this. So again, you're going from the back, around the front, back, around the front, back, around the front. Hold, bottom loop over top, bottom loop over top, bottom loop over top. And whenever we're beginning a new skill or activity that we haven't automated yet, we can choose those little reminder words to help us get into the groove of the process. Like anything else we might learn or do, dance moves, anything else. Use those things to help you. So from around the back, around the front, the back, around the front, back, around the front. For all my little E-wraps, then I pull bottom loop over top. I'm holding on to my working yarn so everything doesn't come unraveled on me. Bottom loop over top, bottom loop over top. When you've gotten all down to one loop, tug on your tail. Now you can see coming out of the bottom of my spool is a nice fluffy cording. We're going to just go a few more times so I don't bore you guys too much. French knitting, loom knitting has been around for quite some time, and of course it wasn't just the French who did it, but these cords were used extensively for quite a while through several periods to make your pull cords on your clothing, your items, your little bags, pouches. You could even use a cording to as ribbon, right, to wrap a present. If you make a thicker cording, you can use it as garland to decorate your wreaths or your Christmas trees, or put out for a party and you have something handmade that lasts for a while versus the paper garland, which is nothing wrong with paper garland. That's fun too because you get to weave in those loops together and tape them down. But this gives you another option for having the kids, having the whole family help in making something to decorate that'll last a while. So you can also use the cords to put a child's name on a piece of wood for their room as a wall decoration. Might like that very much, especially having children see their names in writing. Helps them with the literacy at an early age. And so you can glue the cording down or tack it down with nails, or whatever you prefer. You can even put little aluminum jewelry wire inside the tube so that you can bend it into shapes. There's all kinds of things, creative things you can do with cording. All right, I think this is going to be my last round just for the sake of demonstration. Bottom over top, bottom over top, bottom over top, and a good tug. Okay, so I've got a decent length of cording here. Now, to bind off or cast off, you're going to do it. Those of you who knit will recognize this a little bit. It's somewhat similar, especially those who do circular or square looms, knitting looms. It's a similar method. You will pull one of the loops off the pin, you hold on to it, and then you put it onto the other pin. And you go from here, bottom over top. Now be careful because you might pull both over the edge of the pin. So just take your time. No need to rush or hurry. These things is to slow time down, and so you could just be in the moment, play music you like, or an audiobook, or just quiet, just having everything quiet and silent. Maybe, pray, meditate. Take the other one, put it on this last pin here where the source yarn is, and bottom over top. Okay, now at this point, what you do is you cut your yarn, which I'm not going to cut this yarn because I don't want to make the sample smaller. But what I will do, so I will kind of show you, you're going to pull your cord out, but you don't want, we're snagging. It's helpful until you're trying to pull it out. And then when you cut your yarn, you're pulling it into this loop. And when you pull it into this loop, and then you're going to go ahead and cinch it, and it's going to be set. Okay, and it's already set with the way that I did it. Okay, right, and you've got your fun cordage to do whatever fun activity you want. I know some children who have put this in their hair as a fun, colorful accent instead of, doing all the hair dyes and stuff. And it's just fun for them. These make great bracelets. You can put beads on them. They make great necklaces. You can put pendants and beads on them. They can make straps for anything that you have crocheted or knitted. Or you can even go in and use this either sewn or corded directly on a knitted or crochet piece for just this really nice finished end, which I may do for a blanket here real soon so everyone can see that. But there you go, the 3-pin French knitter or knitting spool with a vintage spool. I hope you enjoyed this and appreciated this tutorial video. Please remember, if you like my content, give it a thumbs up, like, comment, and share. I greatly appreciate it. Also go and check out my Etsy shop, which unfortunately the name had to be changed on there because of technical difficulties. So I'm out on Etsy as Wheelhouse Tradition, no S, without the S. Everywhere else, I'm Wheelhouse Traditions. And you can purchase one of these old-fashioned spool knitter French knitting kits. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.